Look, I have been a combat analyst for the Vrexian Imperial Fleet for 17 cycles now, and I have seen some pretty ridiculous things. I have watched entire battalions crumble because someone forgot to charge the plasma cannons. I have seen admirals trip over their own tentacles during battle briefings. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day we encountered Marcus Webb. Yeah, that is right. One human. One single, solitary, annoyingly persistent human. The whole mess started on Kepler 442b, a contested mining colony that both the Vrexian Empire and the Human-Terran Coalition had their greedy little appendages on. The planet was rich in quantum-grade thorium, the kind of resource that could power a battle cruiser for decades. Naturally, we wanted it. The humans wanted it. And neither side was particularly interested in sharing. Command decided to send in what they called a light peacekeeping force to secure the main mining facility. Light peacekeeping force. That is military speak for 10,000 fully armed soldiers, 30 armored walkers, and enough firepower to level a small moon. I was stationed on the orbital command ship, the Dreadful Silence, monitoring everything from above. My job was simple: watch the tactical feeds, analyze patterns, and make sure nothing went catastrophically wrong. Spoiler alert, everything went catastrophically wrong. The landing went smoothly enough. Our troops deployed in perfect formation, spreading across the dusty red surface like a well-oiled machine. The mining facility sat in a valley surrounded by jagged rock formations, and our scouts confirmed that human presence was minimal. Maybe 50 personnel, mostly engineers and security guards. The plan was to overwhelm them with numbers, force a surrender, and claim the facility without firing a single shot. Commander Threll, a bulky Vrexian with more confidence than sense, led the ground operation. He stood at the front of the formation, all 8 feet of him, armor gleaming in the pale sunlight. "This will be over before midday meal," he announced over the comms, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. "The humans will take one look at our numbers and beg for mercy." I should have known right then that we were doomed. Overconfidence is the galaxy's most efficient killer. The first wave of soldiers approached the facility's main entrance. The heavy blast doors were sealed shut, which was expected. Threll ordered the engineers to set up plasma cutters. 5 minutes, he said. 5 minutes and we would be inside, claiming our prize. That is when the doors opened. Not blasted open. Not forced. They just opened. Smoothly, almost politely. And standing there, alone in the doorway, was a human male. Average height, maybe 6 feet. Brown hair, kind of messy. Wearing a standard Terran Coalition maintenance jumpsuit, which was smudged with grease and dust. He had a coffee mug in one hand. An actual ceramic mug with some kind of cartoon character on it. In his other hand, absolutely nothing. No weapon. No armor. Just a human and his coffee. Threll stopped. The entire front line stopped. 10,000 soldiers, and we all just paused. Because what do you even do with that? The human took a sip from his mug, completely casual, like he was standing in his kitchen and not facing down an invasion force. Then he spoke, and his voice came through our comms clear as crystal. "Morning, fellas. You guys here for the thorium?" There was a long, confused silence. Threll finally found his voice. "I am Commander Threll of the Vrexian Imperial Fleet. This facility is now under our control. Surrender immediately, and you will not be harmed." The human nodded slowly, like he was considering this. Then he smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a defeated smile. A smile that said, "Oh, you poor, stupid creatures." "Yeah, see, here is the thing," the human said, taking another sip. "I am Marcus. I am the facility manager. And I have had a really, really long week. 3 equipment failures, 2 shipment delays, and my espresso machine broke yesterday. So I am running on about 4 hours of sleep and gas station coffee, which, trust me, is not doing great things for my mood. Frel blinked all 3 of his eyes. What does your sleep schedule have to do with anything? Marcus set his mug down on a nearby crate. It means I am too tired to be scared, too annoyed to be reasonable, and just caffeinated enough to be dangerous. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to turn your shiny metal butts around, get back on your ships, and leave. Or I am going to make this the worst day of your very long lives. Laughter rippled through the ranks. I will admit, I chuckled too from my station on the ship. The audacity was almost charming. One human, threatening an army. It was like watching a ground beetle challenge a hover tank. Frel raised one massive claw. You are either very brave or very stupid. I prefer the term aggressively undercaffeinated, Marcus replied. Last chance, Commander. Walk away. Frel made a gesture, and the front line raised their weapons. Plasma rifles, ion cannons, enough energy to vaporize Marcus and the entire doorway. I admire your courage, human. But courage does not stop plasma fire. Open fire. Here is where things got weird. Marcus did not run. Did not dive for cover. He just stood there, completely still, and said one word. Ralph. I had no idea what that meant. None of us did. But then the ground started shaking. At first, I thought it was seismic activity. Kepler 442b had unstable tectonic plates, after all. But the shaking was too rhythmic, too deliberate. And it was getting stronger. Then Ralph appeared. Ralph was not a weapon. Ralph was not a soldier. Ralph was a mining mech. A 60-foot-tall, industrial-grade excavation unit designed to tunnel through solid rock. And Marcus had apparently modified it. Heavily. The mech stomped out from behind the facility, each footstep creating small craters in the ground. Its arms, normally equipped with drills and rock crushers, now sported what looked like jury-rigged plasma cannons. Big ones. The kind that could punch through battleship armor. The cockpit was reinforced with welded plates, and painted across the chest in big, cheerful letters were the words, "You picked the wrong facility." Frel stared. We all stared. Marcus climbed into the cockpit with the casual ease of someone getting into a sedan. I tried to warn you, his voice crackled over the comms. But no, you had to do this the hard way. Ralph moved. Fast. Way faster than something that size had any right to move. The first blast from its armed cannons took out an entire squad before they could even react. The second blast obliterated one of our armored walkers, turning it into a cloud of superheated metal fragments. Panic. Instant, total panic. Our soldiers scattered, firing wildly at the mech. Plasma bolts pinged off its armor like rain off a windshield. Frel screamed orders, trying to organize a counterattack, but it was useless. Ralph was a force of nature, stomping through our ranks like an angry god. I watched from orbit, my mandibles hanging open, as one human in a mining mech systematically dismantled our entire front line. It should not have been possible. It defied every tactical analysis, every combat prediction. But there it was, happening in real time. Marcus was not just fighting. He was trash-talking. Come on, is that all you have got? His voice boomed across the battlefield. My grandma hits harder, and she has been dead for 6 years. A squad of soldiers tried flanking him. Ralph spun, faster than anything that massive should spin, and unleashed a barrage that sent them flying. Nice try, but I literally invented that maneuver when I was 14 playing video games. Commander Threll, to his credit, tried rallying the troops. He called in air support, and 3 gunships swooped down, missiles armed and ready. Finally, I thought, finally we have got him. Marcus saw them coming. Ralph crouched, servos whining, and then jumped. A 60-foot mech. Jumped. It should have been impossible. But humans apparently do not care about things like physics or common sense. Ralph soared through the air, grabbed one gunship mid-flight, and used it as a bat to swat the other two out of the sky. All three crashed in spectacular fireballs. Did he just? My supervisor, Lieutenant Cross, whispered beside me. Yes, I said quietly. He just used a gunship as a melee weapon. By now, casualties were mounting. Not human casualties. Ours. Our soldiers were retreating, regrouping, trying anything to stop this one human and his ridiculous robot. Nothing worked. Every tactic failed. Every strategy crumbled. Threll, desperate and furious, ordered a full assault. Every soldier, every walker, every weapon we had. Thousands of troops surged forward in one massive wave. Marcus saw them coming. He stopped, standing perfectly still in his mech. For a moment, I thought maybe he realized he was outmatched. Maybe he would finally surrender. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, you guys are really committed to this, huh? All right. Let us see how committed you are after this. Ralph reached down and grabbed something from the ground. A mining charge. A really, really big mining charge. The kind used to crack open entire mineral veins. Wait, Threll said, his voice suddenly uncertain. Wait, what are you doing? Marcus grinned, visible through the cockpit window. Something incredibly stupid. But hey, it has been that kind of week. He armed the charge and threw it. Not at our troops. At the ground beneath them. The entire valley floor exploded upward in a cascade of rock, dust, and debris. Soldiers went flying. Walkers toppled like toys. The shockwave hit so hard it registered on our orbital sensors. When the dust settled, maybe half our force was still standing. The rest were scattered, disoriented, or unconscious. And Ralph stood there, completely untouched, spotlights blazing in the settling dust like some kind of mechanical demon. Marcus' voice came over the comms one more time, calm and almost cheerful. So, we doing this, or are you smart enough to call it a day? Commander Threll, battered and covered in dust, stared up at the mech. Then, without a word, he gave the retreat order. Our forces limped back to the landing zone. 10,000 soldiers, defeated by one human and a mining robot. The dreadful silence picked us up in silence. Actual silence this time, because nobody knew what to say. I sat at my console, reviewing the battle footage over and over, trying to understand how this happened. How one human could do this. Lieutenant Cross leaned over my shoulder. What are you going to put in the report? I stared at the frozen image of Marcus Webb, sitting in his mech cockpit, sipping his coffee and waving goodbye as we retreated. The truth, I said finally. That we severely, catastrophically underestimated humanity. And that was just the beginning. So, you would think that after the absolute humiliation on Kepler 442b, High Command would learn their lesson. You would think they would say, hey, maybe we should reconsider our approach to humans. Maybe we should actually study these creatures before throwing another army at them. You would be wrong. 3 days after the disaster, I was summoned to a strategy meeting aboard the Imperial flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The room was packed with generals, admirals, and various high-ranking officials who all looked like they had swallowed something sour. Commander Threll was there too, looking significantly less smug than before. He had a bandage wrapped around 2 of his eyes and walked with a noticeable limp. Grand Admiral Vexeth, our supreme military commander, stood at the head of the table. He was old, even by Vrexian standards, with scales that had faded to a dull gray. But his eyes, all 3 of them, burned with fury. Explain to me, he said, his voice dangerously quiet, how 10,000 of our finest soldiers were defeated by a single human in a construction vehicle. The room stayed silent. Nobody wanted to be the one to answer that question. Vexeth slammed his claw on the table. I want answers. Was this human some kind of elite super soldier? A genetically enhanced warrior? A military prodigy? I cleared my throat. Everyone turned to look at me. Great. According to our intelligence, sir, Marcus Webb is a civilian facility manager. His military record shows he served 4 years in the Terran Marines, but that was 12 years ago. He has no special enhancements, no advanced training. He is just a guy. Just a guy, Vexith repeated slowly. Just a guy who destroyed 3 gunships, 30 walkers, and routed an entire battalion. Yes, sir. The Admiral stared at me like I had just told him the laws of physics were optional. That is impossible. And yet, I gestured to the holographic display showing the battle footage. There it is. We watched in silence as Ralph the mining mech stomped through our forces again. Someone had set the footage to slow motion, which somehow made it worse. You could see every detail, every precise movement, every devastating attack. Marcus fought like someone who had done this 1,000 times, but according to all our data, he had never been in mech combat before in his life. Humans are adaptable, I continued, pulling up additional files. Our xenopsychology team has been studying them for years. They have this unusual ability to improvise under pressure. They call it thinking outside the box. When faced with impossible situations, they do not follow standard tactical protocols. They just make something up. And somehow, it works. General Thross, a tactical specialist, leaned forward. That is not a strategy. That is chaos. To us, yes, I agreed. But to them, it is normal. Humans have been doing this for their entire evolutionary history. They are persistence hunters. They do not give up. They adapt. They improvise. And they absolutely refuse to accept defeat, even when defeat is the only logical option. Vexith was not convinced. One human should not be able to defeat 10,000 soldiers, adaptation or not. There must be something we are missing. There is, sir, I said quietly. We are missing the fact that humans are insane. The room erupted in protests and arguments. I waited for the noise to die down before continuing. Let me rephrase. Humans have a different relationship with danger than we do. When we face overwhelming odds, our instinct is to retreat, regroup, and find a safer approach. That is logical. That is how species survive. But humans? I pulled up a data file. Humans have a documented history of running toward danger. They have a phrase for it. Hold my beer. It roughly translates to, watch me do something spectacularly stupid that will probably get me killed but might just work. I showed them historical records. Humans charging machine gun nests with nothing but knives. Humans fighting bears with their bare hands. Humans building flying machines by literally throwing themselves off cliffs until something worked. Humans landing on their own moon using computers less powerful than a modern calculator. They should have gone extinct 1,000 times over, I said. But they did not. Because every time the universe said, this is impossible, humans said, challenge accepted. Vexith studied the data, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. So what do you suggest? That we abandon Kepler 442b? That we let one human keep an entire planet's worth of resources because he is insane? No, sir. I suggest we negotiate. The room exploded again. Negotiate? With a human? After they humiliated us? Unthinkable. Unacceptable. Absolutely not. But Vexith held up a claw for silence. Go on. Marcus Webb does not want a war, I explained. He just wants to do his job. He is tired, overworked, and running on caffeine. If we approach him as a business problem instead of a military problem, we might actually get somewhere. And if he refuses? I pulled up the footage of Ralph one more time. Then we are going to lose a lot more soldiers finding out exactly how much firepower one angry human can bring to bear. The Admiral considered this for a long moment. Then he nodded. Fine. You seem to understand these creatures. You will be our negotiator. Take a shuttle down to the facility. Talk to this Marcus Webb. Find out what it will take to secure that thorium peacefully. Oh good. Me. The analyst who had never negotiated anything more complex than trading lunch shifts was now responsible for preventing another military catastrophe. Sir, I am not qualified for. You are now. Dismissed. 4 hours later, I found myself in a small shuttle, descending toward Kepler 442b. My stomach, all three of them, were doing acrobatics. I kept reviewing everything I knew about human negotiation tactics. Be respectful. Be honest. Do not threaten. Do not make promises you cannot keep. And whatever you do, do not insult their coffee. The shuttle landed outside the mining facility. The blast doors were open this time, almost inviting. I stepped out, my legs shaking slightly, and walked toward the entrance. Marcus was there, sitting on a crate, working on some kind of mechanical device. He looked up as I approached and gave a friendly wave. Hey, you must be from the ship. Come on in. Want some coffee? I hesitated. Was this a trap? Some kind of human psychological warfare? That would be acceptable. He led me into the facility's break room, which was surprisingly normal. Tables, chairs, a food dispenser, and yes, a coffee machine. Marcus poured 2 cups, handed me one, and sat down across from me. So, he said, taking a sip. I am guessing you guys want to talk about the thorium situation. Yes. I am Vexerin, combat analyst for the Vrexian fleet. I have been authorized to negotiate terms. Marcus Webb, facility manager. Nice to meet you. He extended his hand. I stared at it, confused, until I remembered this was a human greeting gesture. I awkwardly touched his hand with my claw. He smiled. Sorry about the whole, beating up your army, thing. I did warn your commander. You did, I admitted. He did not listen. Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme with military types. No offense. None taken. I am not military, actually. I just analyze battles. So you are the one who has to write the report about how one guy with a mining mech kicked your collective butts? Unfortunately, yes. Marcus laughed. It was a genuine, warm sound. Not mocking, just amused. That has got to be the worst job in the galaxy right now. Sorry, man. I found myself relaxing slightly. This was not what I expected. Marcus was not a warrior or a monster. He was just tired. And surprisingly pleasant. Can I ask you something? I said. How did you do it? How did you defeat 10,000 soldiers? Marcus thought about it, swirling his coffee. Honestly? I got lucky. And I knew your tactics. You knew our tactics? Sure. You guys fight like chess players. Everything is calculated, organized, by the book. Which is great when you are fighting other chess players. But I fight like someone playing poker while the building is on fire. I do not have a plan. I just react and hope something works. That should not be effective. And yet. He gestured around. Here we are. I took a sip of the coffee. It was bitter and strange, but not unpleasant. My superiors want access to the thorium deposits. What would it take for you to allow that? Marcus leaned back, considering. Here is the thing, Vexerin. This facility does not belong to me. It belongs to the Terran Coalition. I am just the guy who keeps the lights on and makes sure nobody blows anything up. But between you and me, I do not care who mines the thorium. I just want to do my job without armies showing up and ruining my week. So you would allow joint mining operations? I would suggest it to my bosses, yeah. Split the thorium 50-50, set up clear boundaries, maybe have a few liaisons to keep communication open. Your people get resources, my people get resources, and I get to go back to fixing broken equipment instead of fighting wars. Everybody wins. It was so simple. So reasonable. Why had nobody thought of this before? I will present this proposal to the Grand Admiral, I said. But I have to ask. If we had not retreated, if we had kept fighting, what would you have done? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he looked me straight in the eyes. I would have kept fighting until either you left or I died. Probably the second one, eventually. But I would have taken as many of you with me as possible. The casual way he said it sent a chill through my scales. He meant it. Completely. Why? I asked. Why would you fight to the death over a mining facility? Because it is my facility, he said simply. My responsibility. My crew. And I do not let people take what is mine without a fight. That is just how humans are built. I understood then. It was not about the thorium or the war or even survival. It was about principle. About refusing to back down. About being too stubborn to quit, even when quitting was the smart option. You really are insane, I said, but there was admiration in my voice. Marcus grinned. Yeah, we get that a lot. The negotiations took 2 weeks. There were arguments, compromises, and more than a few tense moments. But eventually, both sides agreed to a joint operation. The Vrexian Empire and the Terran Coalition would split the thorium deposits, work side by side, and Marcus would continue managing the facility. On my last day there, Marcus walked me to my shuttle. Thanks for actually talking instead of shooting, he said. Your admiral seems like a reasonable guy, once you get past the whole, terrifying military commander, thing. Thank you for not destroying our entire fleet, I replied. He laughed. Hey, I only destroy fleets on Tuesdays. Today is Friday. As I boarded the shuttle, I turned back. Marcus, can I ask one more question? Why did you name the mech Ralph? He smiled, that same mischievous smile from the battle. My dad was named Ralph. He always said, if something is worth doing, it is worth overdoing. Seemed fitting. I returned to the Eternal Dominion with the signed agreement. Grand Admiral Vexith read it, nodded slowly, and looked at me. You did well, analyst. Perhaps talking is more effective than shooting, after all. With humans, sir, it definitely is. Word of the Kepler 442b incident spread through the fleet. It became a cautionary tale, a reminder that humans could not be underestimated. But it also became something else. A story about how one tired, overworked facility manager stood against impossible odds and won not through superior firepower, but through sheer stubborn determination. I still keep the footage of that battle. Sometimes, when I am analyzing combat data or reviewing tactical reports, I watch it again. And every time, I see Marcus standing in that doorway with his coffee mug, facing down an army, completely unafraid. One human versus 10,000 aliens. And the human walked away. Because that is what humans do. They adapt. They improvise. They refuse to quit. And when you push them hard enough, they push back harder than you ever thought possible. So here is my advice to anyone in the galaxy who thinks humans are weak or primitive or easy to conquer. Do not. Just. Do not. Go negotiate instead. Offer them coffee. Treat them with respect. Because if you make them angry, if you threaten what they care about, they will become the most dangerous thing in the universe. A human with nothing left to lose and a really bad week. Trust me. I have seen it firsthand. And I never want to see it again.